Well, good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then available on demand. And we're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple Television, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited, live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ plus news, you will see it and hear it.
Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ+ community. Our mission is to support the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our Black community, Latino, lesbian and queer women, trans, students and youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS, healthcare, business, social justice, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ plus and broader community.
Well, let's welcome Mateo Ventura Bruer, the Executive Director of the Aqua Foundation for Women. Mateo is proudly trans and Latine and is Aqua's first transgender Executive Director.
Thank you. Next, the gay agenda. SunServe Youth's Back to School Carnival, August 18th. SunServe announces an all-inclusive carnival to entertain your entire family for the new school year. SunServe is one of South Florida's most important nonprofits with the motto of "We help people." This free event celebrates diversity, provides information, and creates a fun-filled experience for all families with children returning to school. The event will feature a range of engaging activities, delicious food, and fun amusement rides. Free backpacks and supplies will be distributed. SunServe therapists and life coaches will also be available to offer their services. The event will take place on August 18th at Sunshine Cathedral, and it is sponsored by Hoff's House of Sweets, Papa John's Pizza, Sunshine Cathedral, and Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center. Free registration can be found at sunserve.org.
Let's welcome John Hayden, a journalist for 28 years. He now works for several outlets, including Out South Florida, as senior reporter and community editor. Welcome, John.
In the gay agenda, AirOtic returns to Hunter's Nightclub through August. AirOtic Soiree is back with a brand new, one-of-a-kind experience in Fort Lauderdale. This aerial burlesque experience will last through August. The event features a cast of world-class acrobats and DJs, cocktails, and more. Doors open at 6:30, the pre-show starts at 7, and the main event begins at 7:30. Hunter's Nightclub is the location, a local fave on the drive. The event is open to all above 21 years old with their valid ID. Tickets start at $40. For more information and tickets, visit AirOtic Cirque Soiree. That's AirOticCirqueSoiree.com.
Let's welcome anchor Rajee Narine-Singh, a famous transgender activist, actress, author, mystic, and reality television personality. She is of multiracial descent and has appeared on more than 35 television shows across the globe. Welcome, Rajee.
Thank you. In the gay agenda, Vice City Ballers Turnabout Extravaganza Gay Softball World Series Fundraiser, August 12th. On August 12th, the LGBTQ plus community of Fort Lauderdale will be at Hamburger Mary's for the Vice City Ballers Turnabout Extravaganza to benefit Gay Softball World Series. The event will be hosted by the talented Lady Marissa. It will feature many performers and offer VIP tables, a 50-50 raffle, and many basket raffles. Tables will cost just $125 and will include vodka and mixers. You can contact any VCB member for VIP tables. The doors will open at 4 p.m. Find out more at facebook.com/Vice City Softball.
Let's welcome anchor Jacob Reide Jennings, a professional ballroom and Latin dancer turned real estate broker and philanthropist. Jacob leads the Sherlock's Home Foundation, a nonprofit 501c3 to address LGBTQ plus youth housing insecurity. Welcome, Jacob.
Why, thank you, Al. Okay, in the gay agenda, Key West Tropical Heat returns August 9th through 13th. Tropical Heat is the annual 5-day party for gay men ages 21 and up. The event will start on August 9th and last until the 13th. The official Tropical Heat kickoff party is at Island House at 5 p.m. on the 9th. This 5-day event will conclude with male dancers at the bar at Bourbon Street Pub at 10 p.m. on the 13th. The event will feature several land and water activities and museum visits. The event is sponsored by the Florida Keys and Key West Business Guild, Aquaplex Key West, Island House, and Two Oceans Digital, among others. More information and booking details are available at gaykeywestfl.com. That is GAYKEWWASCFL.com.
We are the reporters of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, July 25th. Let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Visit Lauderdale celebrates everyone under the sun with the Abilities Expo. 3 days, one roof, endless access to the latest products, technologies, and resources for the disability community. Get ready for an all-inclusive climbing wall, a ton of adaptive sports, the world-famous roulettes, info-packed workshops, and so much more. It's all free at Everyone Under the Sun with the Abilities Expo. The event will be held from October 13th to 15th at the Broward County Convention Center. The Fort Lauderdale Abilities Expo will focus on the needs of the community of people with disabilities. This Expo series is held annually in 8 cities of North America, and Visit Lauderdale is bringing the Expo to the city of Fort Lauderdale. Well, it's a great event for Lauderdale and Visit Lauderdale. And it's one of the things, as you see in the promotion piece that Visit Lauderdale is doing, they're focusing on everyone under the sun, which is including women, minority representation, Black, Latino, LGBT, religious diversity, and their most recent addition in community is people with disability, and their embracement of this expo is part of that experience here in Lauderdale. And I've talked to Richard Gray, I've just recently talked to Stacy Ritter, and the point behind it is fighting what they're watching in other places around the state and around the country, which is diversity and inclusion is a good path for success. Yes. Because Broward County and Fort Lauderdale is among the most successful destinations, especially in LGBT, of any destination in the world. And it's a strategy that's working.
Yeah. And they've been working on this for years. This is, you have also talked to, you said you talked to Richard Gray. I talked to him like 2-3 years ago, before the Everyone Under the Sun campaign came out, and he was gushing about how much the county was backing him and how important it was, because most huge destinations, shockingly, don't approach or show inclusivity with the disabled community. I was shocked to learn, but I guess we don't see what we don't see sometimes. You know, if no one's in a wheelchair, well, there's not a lot of people in wheelchairs in my life, so I don't notice that they're not in an ad. So to see it, to represent, and then to follow through with it years later shows a genuine commitment by Visit Lauderdale.
Well, what I love is that it's not just exclusively disabled. See, a lot of times when events happen, it's exclusively for the disabled. But, you know, there's a mixture of different types of people that are going to be there. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. You know, just the energy of that inclusivity, you know, so that's what I love.
I asked Stacy Ritter, the executive director, the president of Visit Lauderdale, why would you do this? And her answer was simply, well, why wouldn't we do this? Yeah. Because we want to make sure that all of these communities, white men, we're A-okay. We can travel anywhere. And white men can travel, by the way, to Lauderdale also and Broward County. But the point that she makes is everyone under the sun tries to create a welcoming space for all of these communities that might not necessarily feel comfortable or welcomed in different destinations that they vacation in. And Visit Lauderdale is making it their mission to ensure that in addition to white men, I can visit anywhere, that other communities that might not necessarily feel that way would be welcome here.
And Al, you've given me your, approval, so I can go anywhere too. I think I'm going to go to Saudi Arabia.
Are you?
Yeah.
Right.
What do you? Will you all go with me?
I'm going to miss you.
But I also love the tagline, and they're actually backing it up with their proof. They're not just saying everyone under the sun and, really just catering to LGBTQ. They're really catering to and actively courting everyone.
And interesting, one other point that you may be aware of or you may not. Visit Lauderdale was the first tourism destination in the world to incorporate in a media advertising campaign in print the trans community. And it wasn't focusing just on the trans community, it was incorporating trans in their messaging for all of the segment communities. So they could run an ad in People magazine on coming to Fort Lauderdale, and there was trans representation in the ad, and it was the first bureau in the world that did that. We can't ask for anything more in Fort Lauderdale.
Well, next, let's queer up education. Southern California School Board puts LGBTQ plus students at risk by requiring teachers to out students. Chino Valley Unified School District has passed a policy putting LGBTQ plus kids at risk. It requires the Southern California School District to notify parents if the child asks to be identified or treated as a gender different from the one they were assigned at birth, or if their child wishes to play on sports teams or use facilities that don't align with the gender on their birth certificate. It also requires the district to notify parents if their child appears suicidal. The board adopted the new provision by a 4-1 vote. The provision was passed with the purpose of fostering trust between parents and the district, but LGBTQ plus activists say such policies pose a danger to children who wish to keep their gender expression hidden from their parents, especially in cases where kids believe their parents won't support them. Studies have long shown that familial rejection increases the odds that transgender and non-binary people will attempt suicide, misuse drugs, or suffer abuse at the hands of their parents, including being kicked out of their homes. Tony Thurmond, who was exploring a run for governor of California in 2026, expressed similar sentiments during his remarks before the board last week, saying, quote, "I ask you to consider this, that this policy that you consider tonight not only may fall outside of the laws that respect privacy and safety for our students, but may put our students at risk because they may not be in homes where they can be safe." End quote. And 2 points. First off, you have to report if the child is showing different gender characteristics or tendencies. And you also have to report if they're considering suicide, which absolutely you should. But you have to think, one can directly affect the other. The second point I want to make is that this is like the second story of rural California or small California that we've done in the last week or so. And it's beginning to sort of, in my mind, I start to see a trend. These small little, dots of virulently red school districts and towns are starting to put their muscle behind these things to bolster the Republican Party, which is essentially dead in California. Their senator, their two choices for senator in the next election will probably both be Democrats. That's how far down the Republican Party is. So if they can start to rally some sort of a base in these small towns, interior California, apparently that's going to be the road back for the California Republican Party. And once again, our trans youth are the stepping stones, bearing the brunt on our shoulders of their political
Can I be
rise.
a contrarian a moment for the conversation at our table? The argument behind this law, and let me just propel the argument and then you'll comment on it. The argument behind this law is when it comes to the decision making of keeping your gender identity or expression of a minor private or secret in comparison to the parental rights of decision making, parental rights win. And that's the premise of this law. That was the Chino's school district rules in that way. Some others are ruling on that way. Obviously, we're familiar with it in Florida because it's the mantra Bible for DeSantis and the radical supermajority in Tallahassee. What do y'all think about that? That parental rights should win over minors' decision-making on gender expression?
Well, as a parent, I don't think that parental rights should always win, hands down. I think it should be, there are certainly things that as a parent I would like to know before it happens at school. Like my 3-year-old is going to be doing an active shooter drill. I would have really liked to know that before it happened. But that wasn't asked. That was not even explained to us. My child told me about it. So I think for a lot of students, school is a safe place, especially if they don't
Or it should be.
It can be, yeah. It's often not. It's often a lot of bullying from peers. But people have a different self that they project in different environments. It's not anything strange. Maybe they're more comfortable at home. Maybe they're more comfortable at school. And if they're not out to their parents, if their parents don't already know, there's a reason for that. So I think this comes down to parental control. And that's when when you decide to have a child, that's an individual. It's not a carbon copy, it's not a clone, and it's not a piece of property for you. They're their own person. And I think that's something a lot of these conversations are really missing, is that this is an individual.
Yeah. But at least they're not making it illegal. Like it's still legal for these kids to be themselves at school. They're just going to be outed. And not that I think that is, it's not necessarily the route I would have taken. I was outed to my parents when I was in high school, and we were very religious, and it did end up with me living out of my car, homeless, graduating high school, living by myself. It was not easy, and it has affected me my entire life. I have the luxury of being a white male. I can't imagine for anybody else what they're going to feel. Actually, I can imagine. I see it in our organization, and it's hard. They're 10.8 times more likely to commit suicide than their cisgender counterparts. They don't have the development in their prefrontal cortex to understand what they're going through and the hormones and the emotions, and they don't have anybody to talk to. Now they don't have a safe space to go. So where do we tell our kids to go? But I will give them this. At least you're in Florida, not in Florida. At least you're in California, not in Florida.
Yeah. Well, you speaking of like how you were outed to your parents, like I was really bullied growing up, and my parents knew it, but when they would ask what the kids are saying, I was like terrified to say, like, that they were calling me gay and sissy, because I knew that at home that wouldn't be acceptable. So it was one of those things where, my parents were there and they were concerned about the bullying, but I was afraid for them to know why I was being bullied, because it's a different world. And, maybe, hopefully parents are more open, but, we're talking, I don't want to give away my age, but we're talking like the 70s. That topic was taboo. You just didn't talk about it with your parents. And so I can't even imagine if there's parents like that and the school, calls and makes them aware. Like in your case, you were made homeless.
Yeah.
It can be crucial. Another thing is too, I can't help to say this. It's like they talk out both sides of their mouth because you're saying, oh, it's about the parents' decision, but yet and still you're passing laws to dictate like what kind of books your kids should read. And, you know, and can your kids go to a drag queen show? I mean, so like, what is it? You know, it's like this thing of like talking out both sides of your mouth. And I get that with them all the time.
Do we know if they're going to be more supportive? Like California, will they have services at the school for their kids to like talk to their parents
Likely
with
not.
them?
Likely not in Chino.
Yeah, and I mean, again, to John's point about is this a stepping stone? Trans kids have been continue to be used as a wedge, and there, are plenty of conservatives across every state, every region we consider to be a stronghold of progressive values, right? Like, they're everywhere, and that's why we can't be complacent.
I can see both sides of this, though.
Yeah, me too. I mean, especially the suicide thing. I mean, yeah, definitely. But see, that's another thing they wedged, like one really, really important topic that a parent would definitely need to be contacted about with something that maybe not necessarily they have to be contacted.
At the same time, were they also informing a caseworker to follow up with the family? The other game, mental health with the family. Like, is this the full story? What are they going? They're going to care. Don't do this half-baked. Go all the way in. If you're
they have a
history
history of doing things half-baked. So next, let's queer up the USA View. Video shows trans man being beat by LA County Sheriff.
Come here. I just stopped you. No, you didn't. Yeah, I did. Get your hands off of me. What are you doing? Oh, my God.
In the surveillance video, you can hear Emmett Brock, a 23-year-old transgender man and a teacher, as he screams for his life. Now, this incident unfolded February 10th of this year, but is just coming to light. An attorney for Brock says he was pulled over for having an air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror. But the deputy got enraged after his client flipped him off. The deputy followed Brock in his cruiser until he pulled into the parking lot of a 7-Eleven in Whittier and got out of the car. That's when we see the deputy confront Brock and beats him to the ground. Now, this altercation lasted for about 3 minutes as Brock was punched in the head. We spoke with Brock's attorney, who says his client is now jobless and facing criminal charges.
Emmett Brock thought he was dying and his mind raced. Quote, "This doesn't happen this way. I can't die like this," end quote. He tasted the blood inside his mouth. He felt the fists land on his head, and he heard the shouts of the sheriff's deputy on top of him, pressing him into the pavement of the 7-Eleven parking lot. 3 minutes later, the 23-year-old teacher sat in the back of a Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department cruiser, not even knowing why the deputy had stopped him. Brock was sent to the Norwalk Station lockup and booked for 3 felonies. When he told the staff he was a transgender man, he said they asked to see his genitals before deciding which holding cell to send him to. That was in February. Brock is now jobless and still facing criminal charges. The Sheriff's Department has been under intense scrutiny in recent weeks for 2 other use of force incidents caught on camera, including one in which a deputy punched a woman in the face while trying to take her child. Concerning the February incident, the department has issued a statement saying, quote, "We take every use of force seriously, and we do investigate," end quote. To Brock's lawyer, Thomas Beck, that underscores how far the Sheriff's Department has to go when it comes to meaningfully holding deputies accountable. So I don't think I have to, that's really rough to watch, really rough to hear, and unfortunately is just one of many. Every single day, another something comes out. And related to that, I just saw research that people are now almost just as likely to be killed by police as they are to be killed by a stranger. The majority of people who are murdered by someone they know, but of the rest of that, it's 50-50. Could be a cop or it could be a stranger. So I think that alone just tells us they see themselves as above the law, it's worked out in their favor. They think that they're above the law and they can do anything and anything they want to do because they get away with it and they continue to get away with it.
I know for me, I think, oh my God, God forbid I have to call 911. I mean, growing up, it was like I grew up with the mentality that, if you need help, you can rely and trust a police officer. And that certainly is not the case always. And I would hate to think all of the injustices that police have done over time before the technology of cameras. Nowadays, at least some of them are being held accountable for their actions. But can you imagine before we were walking around with camera phones and there were cameras all over on buildings, the stuff that police got away with, the crap that they got away with? And it's horrible. And every day you see this on some level. I don't know if you all recently saw the story where the guy had surrendered. He was holding his hands up and they still sicked the police dog on him. They've been playing it all over.
At the end of the day, when the public statement is, we take use of force, every use of force, an accusation of abuse seriously. That's a non-statement. That's not even a statement. That's a statement of reading something out of their Wikipedia manual, not any connection, correlation with this situation. When I was watching it, I was thinking, for those people that do not understand the fear in the black community of police, we're watching it. Now, there's no indication yet that police officer had a particular reaction to the person being trans or not. But that person, to the point that the observation you just made, he had absolutely no idea that camera was working in the way it was and capturing. That's a 7-Eleven. That was a private business camera that captures that. So he's not even thinking about that camera watching. There is no weapon. He is down on the ground. Yeah. The police officer is on top of him, and that doesn't slow the police officer at all down. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I think even the person that does the statement, the official statement, is as culpable as the police officer is, which is, well, we take it seriously. I'm waiting to hear in what way. Because everything you've done so far demonstrates you don't take it seriously.
And when you read the whole article, it shows that it went through 3 different reviews before anybody even questioned was the use of force appropriate.
Yeah. And remember, LA County is 10 million people, the most populous county in America. And in a quick defense of police, they have a very high adrenaline job. They don't know what they're going to find every time they do a pullover or serve a warrant. So I get it. But at the same time, you have to look at this and go, clearly this person was not trained well. This is a very insular, when you see the aftermath, it's a very insular, the LA County Sheriff's Office is a very insular organization. And the fact is, it's very sort of still like old boys network. And this is what we see as a result.
And I think that a lot of times their training goes out the window. You can train all day, but when you see them, a lot of them lose it. They just lose it. Yeah. And I think they're afraid, to your point, they don't know what they're walking into. I'm sure they're afraid, but it's like they just completely lose it. And the ego, because they have the badge and they enforce the laws, right? It's almost like you better be subservient. Almost want to lick the bottom of their feet. If you don't show the respect, the mere fact that he flicked off the officer, that did it. That's why his ass was down on the ground and the officer was beating his behind, because he did that. And the officer is like, how dare you? Now, I know I can't technically get in his mind, but I just, based on my experience, I can tell you, he got mad because the guy flicked him off, and then he was hell-bent on proving to him who the man in charge was.
Yep.
Rajee, let's move on to some education.
I'm sorry, I'm getting a little... You can tell I'm passionate. Okay, education. Yeah, let's go to the next topic. Next, let's queer up education. DeSantis' attempt to make college more conservative leads to faculty exodus. Amidst Ron DeSantis' hostile takeover of the Florida education system, the new College of Florida is struggling to hold on to its faculty. In January, DeSantis appointed the far-right anti-LGBTQ plus activist Christopher Rufo, among other conservatives, to the new college board of trustees in an effort to make the school more conservative. The college had a reputation for being progressive and queer-friendly, but Rufo said the board would conduct a top-down restructuring of the school that will involve designing a new core curriculum from scratch. But now, Provost Bradley Thiessen says 36 faculty have left in the past year alone. In a school with fewer than 100 full-time faculty members, that's a lot. It often takes over a year for universities to fill full-time positions, and without any advance notice from the majority of the departed faculty, the school is now struggling to provide all of the courses that students need. Currently, the school is relying on visiting faculty, but it's still not enough. During his time in office, DeSantis has waged war on public education, most notably through his Don't Say Gay law in 2022. DeSantis also signed the so-called Stop Woke Act, which forbids schools and businesses from offering educational programs on racism and gender-based discrimination. Well, I'm just going to say this. I'm sorry. As the multiracial transgender woman of color on the panel, this last thing that came down the pike from him is absolutely ridiculous to me. Mm-hmm. The teaching of slavery, how slaves benefited from the skills they attained while in slavery. Come on. Mm-hmm. Come on. Yes, a resilient people. Yes, we're able to triumph. But you're talking about generations that were born, lived in that, and died in that. Okay, generations of people. And, oh, I'm getting skills. But meanwhile, my husband's getting lynched. My daughters are getting raped. I'm getting whipped by the master 50 times. I mean, you know, really. And that's just the fact that they just want to, like, cover it up. Mm-hmm. And you can't cover that up. It's a stain on American history. Slavery was horrific.
Remember, this is a strategy. It's a strategy coming from the governor as presidential candidate and by a supermajority radical GOP legislative session. Mm-hmm. It's a strategy.
But Al,
they're
listen,
implementing that strategy.
Al, I have to say this, though. No one that was a part of slavery, and I'm speaking to white people, shouldn't have to feel guilty for something that they didn't do. Mm-hmm. But at least acknowledge it. Like, don't try to, like, cover it up. And also have compassion about it. You know, walking around and I think it's...
But Rajee, you're asking for the impossible. You're going to get no compassion from presidential candidate Ron DeSantis or the supermajority of the GOP in Tallahassee. You're going to get no passion. So unfortunately, it just has to be acceptance. This is who these people are. Then we deal with the issue about what's going on at New College.
And this is you said this is part of a strategy. It's a very targeted strategy. I mean, yeah, there's been issues at Florida State, I think, or Florida, one of the main colleges up north. But New College is a blatant choice. It is a very liberal college. A friend that I used to work with sent his son, his heterosexual son, to New College. The kid was, and he was great kid. But the kid was like, yeah, everyone's gay. His roommate was queer. Everyone who hung out there was queer. And it was just, well, it wasn't even a secret. It was a badge of honor. And now DeSantis is literally there trying to crush it. And he wants the attention on this because even if he fails, then he can take it to his red meat base and say, look, you need to elect me so we can keep pushing. We can keep fighting the wretched fight.
So it's about destroying a safe haven for queer people.
Yeah. Exactly.
There it is.
Yes.
There it is. And And to be honest with you, and we're going to move on here in a moment. We're going to move to Jacob. But let me, the illustration, your question and your answer is the right question and the right answer. My house is on the wall at New College in Sarasota. I live on Sarasota Bay. I grew up at New College. I grew up in the library at New College. It's one of the best college institutions in the United States. And my house, after growing up, I buy a house on the campus of New College at Bayfront, the Catazan Museum, and home, the Ringley Museum at New College, and that's where I live. I could walk to the library in 60 seconds at New College. New College is a special place. It is, USA Today publishes the 1,000 best colleges in the United States. And for year after year after year, New College would make an honorable mention of this school is so good, we can't even fairly incorporate it in the best 1,000 colleges, public institutions in the United States. Because the institution is for small school, public small school, it's Harvard on steroids. Mm-hmm. There's no A, B, C's, D's, or fails. It is pass or fail. In a college, you earn your degree in all of your classes as pass or fail. It has the highest LGBT embracement of any college in the state of Florida as a public institution. The percentage of population that is LGBT that gravitates in this special honors public school is higher for LGBT than any other school in Florida. And that's why it's a target. The shame is Governor DeSantis is destroying one of the greatest public institutions in America. In America. And USA Today has completely said this over and over again, year after year. And this story is the proof of that. 35% of the curriculum of the college professors, the Dr. Such and Such, and Dr. XYZ that are teaching at such a special school that requires unparalleled credentials to even be able to teach at New College, says, I'm getting out of this craziness, and this high percentage leaves. Now, let me give you one final observation of how serious the destruction is. With the number of professors that are at the University of Florida, in the course of the last year, this would be national news if this was going on at the University of Florida, not this special honors private college. If it was at the University of Florida, more than 2,000 professors would have left in the last 12 months.
Yeah. Wow.
It's breathtaking. We are watching the wholesale destruction of one of the great colleges in America as a public institution. Why? Because Ron DeSantis is fill in the blank. That's what's going on at my neighbor at New College in Sarasota.
Next, let's clear up sports. Jacksonville Jaguars strength coach becomes first out male coach in major U.S. men's sports. Kevin Maxton, an associate strength coach with the NFL's Jacksonville Jaguars, is coming out publicly in hopes of living his life openly without fear, and to inspire others to do so as well. Maxton is believed to be the first ever publicly out male coach in major American men's pro sports. He told Outsports that his journey has been a long one, but in his last year, his personal network has risen up around him to show support for his coming out. Max's partner is his boyfriend, Nick. The two have been dating for over 2 years. Before joining the Jaguars, Maxon was a strength coach with the football teams at Baylor and Vanderbilt. He has also interned as a strength coach at the University of Iowa and the Army. With the Jaguars, he works with the offensive and defensive linemen on designing their full workout plan. That entails planning exercises, weights, and recovery to achieve their goals. He also travels to games with the team. Before Maxon, a couple of female assistant coaches in the NFL have been publicly out, most notably former San Francisco 49ers assistant coach Katie Sowers. Kurt Miller is an out male coach at the WNBA, yet Maxon is, according to Outsports, the first publicly out male coach in a major American men's pro sports league.
Oh, well, God bless him. because I can't imagine how those locker rooms are. Like, you know, they're saying that, you know, well, yeah, I'm sure you can. I just remember myself in gym class being terrified to go and change in the locker room. Yeah. It was like so terrifying for me. And so, and I know that, and we're talking like elementary school, junior high. So, you know, at that level, what goes on, it must be horrific. And more power to them, because we need people in the LGBTQ plus community to be out loud and proud. You know, we need that. So I'm happy that he's taken that stance and he's open, but I'll pray for him.
I think that someone's coming out shouldn't have to be political in any way, but I think it's also notable that this is a Florida team. They're based in Florida, and not down here in the south of Florida. They're in Jacksonville. So I think it's amazing that this is what we need, more people who are being loud about it. And especially if you have a platform, he's breaking a ceiling, which shouldn't really be there, but he is breaking a ceiling, which is important.
And another thing that's important about this particular position, strength and conditioning coaches spend more time with the team with all members of the team than any other coach on the squad, because they work on strength and conditioning all year round. So he's going to be there with all of the players. And so they're going to have to, you know what, you have to deal with it. And the fact that he's a strength and conditioning coach underlines the fact that he will be with all of them, and it's a new day. Tampa last season had they signed the first gay out player in free agency. Now we've got this. Who knew that Florida would become a haven for gay football?
Gay football players. You know, one last thought. It's a very big story, because as opposed to a player, a coach is a different level issue, because the coach interaction with the players is really what is going to be at play here. I agree with you in terms of the intricacies of a strength and weight coach, but it's a coach versus a player, and it's a new standard. I agree with you on Florida, but also I just want to suggest that one of the things that I really love about this story is outsports, and I'm just pointing out to you that sports is something, we always make the joke. If Greg Shapiro was here, he would go, this is sports ball. What is this all about? And he's making the joke that gay people, especially gay men, don't pay any attention to sports. Now, we go to the sports bar, Jim, on Welton Drive all the time. We love it. I'm going to try to catch the World Cup game. And while it may be a casual interaction, we're still everything. And in the LGBT media world, Outsports is the real deal. Out's going to report this story. Advocate's going to report this story. We're going to report this story, but we're not the real deal in this lane. Outsports is. They're the real heavy lifters in LGBT stories and sports. And they're the one that break this news. They're the one that tells it the best. And to be honest with you, in fairness, we're telling this story because the editor of Outsports, who is the real deal, sends me a text and go, Al, pay attention to this. This is a big deal. And I go, okay, yes it is. And hence, Queer News Tonight. So we congratulate Outsports also. This is a big story.
Now, here's a preview of some of the stories you'll find in this week's Out South Florida. This week in Out South Florida, powered by Queer News Tonight. I'm Out South Florida senior reporter John Hayden. In this week's issue, Fabian Basabe, the gay Republican who represents Miami Beach in the legislature, faces damning accusations of sexual harassment. Also, LGBTQ plus youth outreach group PRISM shakes things up as it looks to the future. And it's a Barbie world, and we're just living in it. Entertainment critic Greg Shapiro looks at the movie that broke box office records. I'm John Hayden. Those stories and more in Out South Florida, on stands now and always updated online.
Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m.
Well, we finish tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up politics. Biden to veto Veterans Affairs budget unless anti-LGBTQ plus additions are removed. White House officials are threatening to veto House Republicans' plans for funding for the Veteran Affairs programs in the next fiscal year, saying the appropriations outline as written contains too many partisan attacks on controversial social issues. The $320 billion spending plan roughly matches the funding level requested by President Joe Biden in his federal budget proposal last spring. But the amendments added to the plan by the GOP lawmakers on the House Appropriations Committee make the proposal unacceptable. The draft bill includes numerous new partisan policy provisions, including threats to the health and safety of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex Americans, endangering marriage equality, hindering critical climate change initiatives, and preventing the administration from promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up education. LGBTQ plus youth activists build little libraries to bypass book bans. 6 young activists have deployed their first little library in Miami-Dade County, filled with banned books and works they hope will counteract academic censorship and the stigmatization of LGBTQ plus people under Florida's new public education regime. The Alliance for LGBTQ Youths unveiled a handcrafted, weatherproof book hut on July 15th outside of the Allapattah YMCA, the first of 3 little libraries planned for the county. Vince Quadra, a 19-year-old member of the Alliance's Changemakers leadership program, explained that their mission is to provide the public with examples of books by and about people from marginalized groups whose stories have been shut out of school libraries amid the culture war furor.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up travel. Out Portuguese tourist held in Turkish prison for 20 days for looking gay. An out Portuguese man named Miguel Alvaro recommends not traveling to Turkey after he was picked up on the street for looking gay and imprisoned for 20 days. He posted an Instagram video with a caption suggesting human rights do not exist in Turkey. The 34-year-old was on vacation alone in Istanbul last month. On June 25th, he went to meet a friend for lunch and asked police for directions. What Alvaro did not know was that there was an illegal LGBTQ plus parade happening nearby. Pride parades have been outlawed in Istanbul since 2015. According to the British website LBC, Alvaro was arrested after being injured when he was thrown against a wall. Later, he was told that the police needed a quota of arrests from the event, and he was the unlucky victim.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up trans rights. Putin signs law banning gender-affirming care in Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed new legislation Monday, which marked the final step in outlawing gender-affirming procedures, a gripping blow to Russia's already embattled LGBTQ plus community. The bill, which was approved unanimously by both houses of parliament, bans any medical intervention aimed at changing the sex of a person, as well as changing one's gender in official documents and public records. The only exception will be medical intervention to treat congenital anomalies. It also annuls marriages in which one person has changed gender and bars transgender people from becoming foster or adoptive parents.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Pregnant transgender Florida man killed by fiancé in murder-suicide. A 21-year-old trans man who was 8 months pregnant was killed by his fiancée, who then fatally shot himself, in what authorities in Florida are investigating as a murder-suicide. According to authorities, Riley John Grover, 26, shot Camden Ryder multiple times around 7 p.m. on Friday outside the home in Winter Haven in front of witnesses. Facebook posts show Ryder proposed to Grover in April 2022. Ryder also posted an image of an ultrasound in March announcing he was pregnant with their child. According to police records obtained by HuffPost, Grover was arrested multiple times over the last several years, including for an incident of a domestic violence involving a female family member. According to a national survey, more than half of transgender individuals have experienced intimate partner violence. That's the news today for the LGBTQ community, for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson. And on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including John Hayden, Mateo Ventura Bruer, Rajee Narine-Singh, and Jacob Reide Jennings. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you good night.
Good night.
Good night.
We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ plus evening news show, brought to you from Happening Out Television Network. We operate in the same model of PBS and NPR, but for the LGBTQ plus community. We educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ plus community, with more than 100,000 a week watching us on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the story going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.